Today we're going to go into the 5 secrets of producing drum and bass to create something like this.
You don't want this. From one from the change stay constant. Me not a monster.
Yes, mate.
Monster stompers, conscious clunkers. Man, it's hard like that. Big bouncer man, got bomb like that. If I give a girl D, then she call right back. 2 phones, don't call my gaff with a war pipe.
Artists like Chase and Status bring a really tough edge to D&B, so I want to walk through every step of creating a track in that style from scratch, including programming and processing the drums, creating that filthy modulated bass line, picking the vocals, mixing, arrangement, and so much more. This was a request from one of our accelerator students last week in our live group call, and drum and bass has always been a passion of mine, so this was an absolute joy for me. As usual, you can download the project file, all the samples and presets completely free for you to pick apart and use in your own music, so without further ado, let's hop into the door and get it done. Okay, let's get to it. First thing we need is a nice big fat kick, and I'm going to show you something that I haven't shown on this channel for a very long time, if ever actually, which is layering kicks, so we can get the nice deep boom of the sub bass, but also we can get that nice body of that crunchy D&B kick. So I've got my magic list. It's going to help me because there's a lot to get through today. I'm going to go as quickly as possible and make the most of your time. Cool. So that's our first kick. Boom, boom, boom. Lovely. And then we are going to get a kick with a bit more character. So I'm actually going to look for a kick with some kind of top acoustic type sound. So let's go into kicks and let's listen. Something like that. Yeah, I like that. We'll have that. Brilliant. Next thing I want to do is program that in on the kick position, and usually with house music or techno it's going to be on every beat, but with drum and bass there's a couple of different positions it could be, but the one I'm about to show you is probably the most common. So it's something like this, and if we turn on the metronome, we set the tempo to 176, nice and fast, this is the kind of pattern we're going to be playing. Like that. At the moment it sounds a bit dodgy, so I'm going to show you how to sort that out. Let's put that drum and bass pattern in on the kick, and the reason is these transients are slightly out of time. If we zoom in we can see this one, there's a little bit of a gap beforehand, so you get this kind of da-dum sound. We want to tighten that up. Like that. Boom, straight away. But we don't want these kicks fighting with each other, and we need to kind of get them working together as one. We're going to get to that very shortly, but first thing I'm going to do is set this entire kick level to hit at -12, and that's so we don't run into any clipping on the master channel. Now, with this kind of music, you might be tempted to just push everything really loud to get that really fat loudness, but actually, what we can use to create that loudness comes later in the process, which we are going to get to in a few minutes, but we don't want to be pushing everything into the red, that's for sure. That's for damn sure. So, at the moment we're peaking at -3.5. Let's get the whole thing down to peak at about -12. Bit more than that. Lovely, so we've got lots of headroom on the master channel. Cool. Next thing I want to do is get the main snare in. Now you want the kick to sound a bit like a kick in the box, and you want the snare to sound like someone slapping you around the face. You deserve it because you're not filthy enough yet. So we need to get some really snappy, clappy snare that's really going to hit those high frequencies. So I'm just going to look for clap, and I think I got one in my library earlier, actually, a nice kind of, this one here I think. Oh, that's good. We could have that one. So I think this one's a bit tighter though. You know, there's no reverb on it. So I'm going to bring that in, and we're going to get to the bass very shortly. I've got so much to show you today, some really cool tricks. The first thing is getting that snare in on every other kick position. I say every other kick position because that's where it would usually be in house or techno, but the snare actually doesn't change in this genre. So it's just a bit faster. So now it sounds a bit like this. Oh, hello, taxi. There we go. Cool. But this needs to be on every other position, like so. That's better. So it sounds really weak at the moment. We're going to have to fatten that up, and that comes very shortly. But first, let's name this bad boy. Chase and Status. Rhymes with that bloke. So let's call it Fast and Furious, because it's drum and bass, and it's naughty drum and bass. I'm actually going to call this gnarly drum and bass. That's what this is, gnarly drum and bass. So next thing we want to do is get the hat positions in, and then those shuffle beats. Then we're going to get onto those crazy growly basses that Chase and Status are known for. But first, let's get some hats in there. We're going to process these drums in a little bit as well to get them sounding really in your face. That one will do. I'll have that. We'll put it on the 16th hat position. I'm just going to rename that to be closed hat though, because it's not actually going to hit on the 16th today. Gonna just put it on every 8th, like so. We will get to the 16th as well. And what I'm going to do is vary the velocity of some of these, and that's just going to vary the volume of them. So it's going to make it sound a bit more like a real drum kit. And next thing I want to do is get the snare skip position in. Now, anyone who's taken music theory for EDM producers, you know about the 2 snare skip positions, and we're going to do that today because it's really important for drum and bass. So where would that be? We could put one there. That's skip position 1. And we'll put another one there. That might be too much. And I'm going to get another drum in, and we're going to start building up that shuffly effect at the moment. So I'm going to get another snare, and this is to help augment the kind of snare positions. I had one called Skrillex snare or something like that. Let's check it out. Here we go, Skrillex rim snare. Bit weird, but sound selection is so important. So that is definitely one of the things that you need to look out for in this style of music, is picking the right sounds, because you could program in an amazing drum pattern, but if you don't pick sounds that work well together, it's never going to sound great. So, and again, a little bit of variation of volume. Let's have a listen. Cool. So that's sounding good, exactly as I want it to sound. And I'm going to put another closed hat because I want to vary the timbre of some of these sounds as well. You could just get a top loop from, you know, Splice or Loop Cloud, but I actually want to show you how to program these drums too. Okay, so I'm just going to put this one in there. Don't know if it's going to sound good, so I'll show you what I do when I've programmed in a sound to help get the right kind of sound. So I'm just going to put this in between every 8th position. This would, in house or techno, be where the open hat would usually go. And let's just tone it down a bit. Cool, so that's sounding pretty good already. Next thing we need to do is get both an 8th shuffle and a 16th shuffle. So the way I'm going to do that is get top loops from Splice. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to work quickly. We got a lot to get through today, and I want you to get the most from this. So let's do it. Color them green, the natural color of drums in the wild. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, by the way. If they do, they're either misinformed or they're simply lying to you. Next thing I'm going to do is look up the kielbasa, not the Polish sausage. It's an instrument. So let's look up loops. Yeah, that's good. That's hitting the 8ths as well. And it's already from a drum and bass pack. So it's going to be sounding pretty good because it's already sampled at the right tempo. And it should have automatically warped it. Now I'm checking that this has warped it correctly. Splice has told us it's 174 BPM. Our track's in 176. So we have to make sure that this is warped correctly to the original tempo of the sample. And it is. You know, Ableton's pretty good at that. So now we've got this effect. So this is actually playing on the 8ths as well. This is just layering at the moment. So we can turn these ones down a bit. It's just to add a little extra feeling. But I'm going to show you something really cool to make this widen and thicken out our drums straight away. There's 2 things I'm going to show you. The first is using the Haas effect. Now, some of you will have seen this before, and what it involves is basically delaying the left and the right channel a little bit from each other. So I'm going to throw a delay on there on our kielbasa. It's ping pong delay, but we can hear there's feedback and it all gets messy. So I'm going to turn the feedback to 0, dry wet to full. Then I'm going to turn off this thing. So I don't want the left and the right channels linked anymore. And I'm just going to have a very, very short delay on both channels, and they have to be different from each other. And that's going to delay the left and the right slightly and create stereo width. So then we've got this. From this, mono, to this. And I'm going to check the whole mix in mono by using my mono switch. Just got a keyboard shortcut M with the utility on the master channel, boom. And the reason I'm checking this in mono is because this is what can happen if you get it wrong. You can get phasing effects like that. And if you push it too much, you just get weird timing delays. So you have to kind of get the sweet spot if you're using the Haas effect. That sounds pretty good in mono. Go back to stereo, sounding great. So let's continue with my next trick for stereo width, which is using room reverb. So if we open up the routing here, again, a lot of you would have seen me do this every week, but I right click, create return chain, and then I select from this drop down one of our global auxiliary channels, which are here. And for the room reverb, I want the decay to be under half a second, maybe even a bit tighter, because the tempo's faster, the reverb's going to kind of die out a bit longer relatively to all the other drums. So if this was a slower tempo like house, I might have the room reverb be slightly longer. Okay, stop waffling, Will. Now I can just leave this S control on and feed a little bit of this, any of the drums out to this room reverb. Instant stereo width. I don't want it on the main clap, but I will boost the main clap a tiny bit to give it some extra sizzle. Sounds pretty good on the closed hats. Awesome. Last loop I want to get in there before we get onto those basses in about 1 minute is a 16th shuffle. And this is what's really going to give you that drum and bass groove. So I'm going to go for, let's say, shuffle. And it's all about the texture of the sound. Because if you get the wrong texture, then it's not going to gel with your other drums. So I like to just search a few times. If the timing's not quite right, it's easy. You can fix that with the warp mode. But getting the actual right frequencies and timbre of the sound is the most important thing when it comes to picking anything, pretty much. So let's see. There we got a nice shaker. So I'm going to bring that in. 16th. And there's a couple of things I'm going to show you with this to make it a bit more interesting. So I'm going to bring it up a bit quieter. So it's kind of a bit, there's too much of it and it's all the same kind of volume. And this takes us into a very important thing that is going to be different from every other video I've shown you. So I'm just going to EQ out some of those high mids so it's a bit less kind of in your face. And then this sidechain trigger, which a lot of you would have seen just clicking on every beat, boom, 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 usually for house tracks, we need this to match our kick pattern because we're producing drum and bass now. So I'm just going to line that up. Each of these is a really short, sharp rim shot that we're going to use only for the purpose of triggering our sidechain compressors to duck the sound. So here we can see it's now lined up perfectly. And now I can use that on that loop. So if I throw in a compressor, just standard compressor on that 16th loop, open up this little fellow there, my little triangular chum, hit sidechain trigger, make the attack really quick. Let's see what happens. And that's going to be triggered now from this sidechain trigger. So we can hear there's some movement already. And it just makes the whole thing a bit nicer. But we're going to grunge that up very shortly. But the first thing I'm going to do is grunge up just the shaker itself. I love this. This is so good. The amp in Ableton. Check it out. It's just going to sizzle the hell out of this shaker. Like a Polish sausage. I like the blues one. Right, check out the difference. This, boring. This, best thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Fantastic. Okay, on to the bass, the all-important bass. But before we do that, we need to know what key we're writing in, because that's going to inform all of the notes in our bass and our melodies, right? So what we're going to do is choose a very specific type of key. Most dance music is going to be written in minor keys, but when it comes to tech house and drum and bass, if you want that really kind of evil sound, a Phrygian mode is the way forwards, basically. So I'm just going to get a serum in here. I'm going to be using serum today instead of the stock plugins because there's a lot of stuff I need to show you with modulation. Let's bring this down and we're going to program in just the bass notes for our progression first. And there's not really going to be a progression so much as bass melody. We don't want big chord progressions. It's not trance. Come on, guys, it's not trance. Let's choose a scale. I said we want a Phrygian mode, so I'm just going to randomly choose, I don't know, A sharp, and then I'm going to go Phrygian. Now, I'm not some kind of maestro, because when I do this, I can hit scale mode and all the hard work is done for me. I just need to use this template like this. So the mode sounds like this. So this relationship here gives you that dark sound. That sounds horrible, but not for long, my pedigree chums. So then you've got this kind of sound where there's not very much space between each note in terms of on the scale. That gives us this really nice kind of dark sound. So that's it. We're just kind of dancing around the root note of the track, which is the A sharp in this Phrygian mode. And that's it. So I want to make this into our main driving sub bass. So what I'm going to do is just put a filter on there to take up the higher frequencies. Drop it down a couple of octaves to the sweet spot. Now your sub bass really wants to be hitting between 30 Hertz to 70 Hertz. If it falls outside that range, you can just move that one note down an octave or up an octave. Getting a bit kind of advanced here, so let's just crack on. Maybe that's too high. Yeah, in fact, I'm just going to use a sine wave, my favorite for a sub bass. Just keep it clean. So it sounds like it's dropping a bit low. I want to see what this root is hitting. So if we open up a frequency analyzer, let's see what it's hitting. That fundamental is 29 Hertz. Okay, I've chosen a bad key to write in because the root is like right on the cusp of that sweet spot. So I'm going to change the key because I can do that because it's my track and I can do what I want. I'm going to change it to up a little bit. Let's change it to G Phrygian. So I'm going to have to change these notes, bring it up to do do do, and now we've got this effect. That sounds like Candy Shop by 50 Cent, the D&B version. Ooh. Right, what I'm doing here is setting my sub bass to be averaging -20 RMS. And there's an important reason for that. And it's so your sound is nicely balanced if your kick is peaking at -12. So let's get on to the stuff you've all been waiting for. But let me know if you're enjoying this so far. In fact, no, I'm not going to ask you that because I'm going to blow your minds first. And that is by creating a couple of gnarly mid basses. First mid bass. This is where we get into the fun stuff. Let's call this mid bass 1. Nice name, Will. Really original. Love it. And then what I'm going to do is get a basic serum patch. I'm going to call this bark, actually. It's more fun. I want it to actually sound a bit like a barking robot dog. You know, from that Swedish House Mafia video. It's that, but barking. Right, let's put the serum on there. And I want this to just go wow, 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 like that. So what's the root of the track? We are in G Phrygian, so it's going to be a G. Let's find a nice G. Let's hit that G spot. Okay. But instead of actually programming the rhythm of this, I'm actually going to control it with the LFO. So that sounds rubbish, right? Granted. Check this out. I'm going to assign this LFO at an 8th tempo. And an LFO just stands for low frequency oscillator. And it's a wave form that oscillates, and it can be assigned to different parameters within a synth. Now, we go well in depth in all of this stuff in the accelerator. I'm not going to do that today because it would take me hours, but let's just go into the basics. So now we've got that kind of wow, wow, wow effect. I don't want it to do it 4 times. I want it to do it thrice. So I'm going to stop that there. But it sounds really cheap and basic at the moment, doesn't it? And that's because we've got to get onto that important thing that I was telling you about, which is modulation. Should it be down an octave? Maybe. I'm not sure. We'll see. So I can now assign this LFO to different parameters within the synth. A lot of people will make these kind of dubstep wubs and things like that just on filters. But the key, the real trick here, is to use wavetable modulation. And it's a bit trial and error because you've got to find the right wavetable shape. But if you look at this, you can see we are using a wavetable that's quite interesting. So if we can modulate through that cyclically, then we can create a really nice texture like this. Like that. And there is trial and error involved, but I'm going to do it quickly so you don't have to suffer all of that. So I'm assigning this wavetable to the filter. Hopefully you can already see the kind of sound I'm going for. Like, that already sounds pretty cool. So let's get some unison in there, detune it for some stereo width. Take the randomize off. Maybe I'll take that unison off. And then I'll turn this main wavetable on again, the first one. Maybe I'll assign that to the unison, so it gives us some stereo width. Now that sounds better, we'll do that. Cool. Let's see if it works down an octave. Oh, we're already getting there, just a few small moves. But we've got way more fun to have with this synth before that. We're already getting the kind of sound that I'm going for. So let's get some effect on there. A really nice effect, if you're creating this neuro bass type sound, is hyperdimension. Turn off the unison, we've already got some unison. And then it's about using a little bit of this dimension thing. It's a bit like a room reverb. It just gives it like a bit more of a metallic feel. Sounding pretty good. Cool. Next thing I want to do in terms of the effects is add a little bit of distortion. I might add that before the hyperdimension. No, let's have it afterwards. Throw caution to the wind, eh? I know I'm crazy. I don't give a damn. Now I do because I can't hear. And I'm going to assign this LFO to the amount of distortion being applied as well. So it just adds that extra movement. Sorry for deafening anyone there. You won't be deafened, it will be edited down in volume, so I'll look like an absolute wizard. Now I want to add the final thing, a little bit of EQ, and just find a nice resonant peak that I can push to give it some real flavour and character. No, that's 2. That sounds pretty good. So I'm happy with that at the moment. So what I'm going to do is EQ it, and I'm going to add extra character to it now because the processing is really important. So I'm going to take out everything under about 120 hertz because our sub bass is already hitting those frequencies and we don't want to end up messing up our low end. Like that. And then last thing I'm going to do, everyone's favorite OTT, which is way too often overused, but for this kind of genre, it can work nicely. I'm going to put that before the EQ, and I'm just going to boost some of these high frequencies by using this OTT. And then add a little bit of air to the sound. Right, there we go. Now, when we've got the drums playing as well, we've got this kind of effect. Oh, straight away, like, yes. And, you know, that's not perfect, but I'm trying to give you an example of how to do it. And then tweaking it, that all the steps you got are right there that I've just shown you. Then it's a matter of tweaking it, choosing different waveforms, tweaking the effects that we've got and the amount that this oscillator is, the LFO is controlling them. Let's throw one more in there for good measure. Let's just kind of give it a bit more body. I love these bowed metal ones as well. So we can add some wavetable position to that. Oh, hello, Sailor. Right, quieter, thanks. So it just gives us an extra bit of high-end sizzle. Like, listen to that. Yes. Now I want to find the Candy Shop lyric. Okay, on to the next thing. On the magic list, now you can give me a hell yeah or an amen, brother, if you're feeling holy. But we've got so much more to cover, including arrangement, the crunchy riff, the brass, the vocals, boom, and we don't have much time to do it, so let's get to work. Next, we need to get the secondary bass that's going to interplay with this bass. So we're going to call that bass 2, whatever. And this is going to play the secondary riff. And we're going to use a similar idea about using modulated bass. But first, let's get the serum on there and get the notes in. That's the most important thing, or it's equally important. And having a sip of water, of course. Right. So, G Phrygian. It's already set up, scale mode. Lovely jubbly. Then we are going to get this notes in here. And I wanted to follow the sub bass, really. You know, in terms of the melody it's playing. Otherwise, the whole arrangement's going to get messy. So you want a simple idea executed with nuance and complexity. Complexity on the other side of simplicity. No, the other way around. Simplicity on the other side of complexity. So we're playing the same notes as the sub bass. Well, we should be, rather. Except I'll do a double hit there. That's what it should be. And then again, let's program it in. And then the last note to give it some variation. What's the last note on this one? It is the F, and that's the last note there. Cool. Okay, let's create another modulated bass. Again, we can automatically just take out, or initially just take out the low end, because we don't want it fighting with our sub bass anyway. And I'm going to show you something very cool that actually my head coach Nick showed me on one of our Accelerator live group sessions, which is related to distortion, but it's kind of stealth distortion. So the first thing we need to do is get the shape in there. I'm going to shape this and use the LFO as an envelope. So just like using it here, it doesn't really matter which place you use it in, but I'm just going to shape this to create the kind of shape I want this to be playing. And let's put on a filter and assign this to our standard saw wave at the moment. And let's just make sure that all of these notes are long enough. So I'm going to hit legato, and it's going to make all of the notes kind of bleed into each other. But I just want them to be this long, really. So let's just do that. Okay, let's grab those, make them half as long. Then I'm going to choose a different wavetable to give us a different timbre of sound. So I'll go for a square wave, I think. Let's go basic shapes, or a pulse wave, rather. So again, we're going for that similar idea, and then this time I'm going to use a sine wave. I might actually push up the semitones to give us that kind of fifth interval. So if you look at this setting here, I've pushed up 7 semitones on that second oscillator, which gives us a fifth interval. So instead of this, we've got this. That sounds pretty cool, actually. Yeah, I like that. Cool. Last thing I want to do is add another one of these wavetables and play with that, just to see if we can get something that sounds a bit more textural. And then let's add that to wavetable position. No. Getting there. Okay, that's going to do for now because we could play with this all day. So let's get some of those effects on there again. We're going to go for another hyperdimension. We're definitely going to get a distortion in there. And I'm going to use this one I like. It's quite, we could use downsample actually, that's pretty cool. But let's use this one. And the last one I want to show you, which I haven't shown anywhere before, is this convolve. So this can give you a nice kind of sound, but it is a bit, you have to be careful with it because it can really kind of screw up the sound a bit. So let's see what we can get. Just dial a little bit of it in. Yes, get in there. Cool. So that's pretty much it for those basses. So next on the magic list is the crunchy riff. Now this is nice because it kind of gives us juxtaposition to a lot of this kind of darker sound. And again, unsurprisingly, in fact, I'm going to call this grunchy because it's half grungy and it's half crunchy. So it's going to be a crunchy riff. And don't forget, you can download all of these presets that I'm creating today, and we're going to hear the finished result as well. So let's just get in there. We need to speed up, but let's go. Right, so I'm going to show you something pretty cool here. This is where we can use a simple saw wave and we can create something rather special with two techniques. Well, one technique, but two elements to it, two parts to it. So first, let's draw in a nice riff. Based around the root note of the track, which is G, because we're writing in G Phrygian. And actually, the Prodigy have used this technique before, as well as Chase and Status. So it sounds really cool. So I actually might just nick a Prodigy riff. Well, close as. Some of you might recognize it. Let me know if you do, because I can't remember the name of the track. So this is just going to be a repeating riff. I might make it a bit more interesting than this, actually. So just a tiny variation at the end. And I'm just completely making this up as I go along. Now let's make that sound not completely rubbish. Rubbish, as if. Right, next thing I want to do to give this the effect I want is to add a little bit of reverb. I'm just going to add some room reverb really tight on the channel itself with a tight decay. So now you've got an interesting stereo field. And now the last thing I want to do is add another one of those absolutely epic amps that Ableton has provided us with. Going to set it to dual mode so we got the stereo image, and I'm just going to experiment with getting this sounding a bit more gnarly. Yes, I accept. And now to tone that in, or tone that down, I'm going to put a filter on there. We could actually use in the arrangement stage, which is just opening up over time if we wanted. Oh, yes. And let's take out the low end so we don't have it fight with our main bass. Right, I'm going to have this run through. We're going to get into the arrangement as I'm doing the rest of this as well, because we're running out of time. So I'm going to have this change slightly. The track might start like this, actually. It might start like this. To lock in the key of the track. But at this point, what I'm going to do is do what they did on that track. You ain't got no magic list. That's what we're going to be doing by the end of this. I'm going to hit the root note all the way like this and just create some kind of wailing guitar effect. And then I'm going to do this pitch bend effect. So if we go here and hit pitch bend, I want it to be having this kind of effect. No, not quicker than that. Just like a really quick one at the beginning. Like that. And then what I'm going to do is go into here and control down to one semitone. That way. So it's only bending one semitone. Like that. And we can just repeat that a couple of times. Throw some hall reverb on there. And you got this kind of mad electric guitar type sound. Can be really low in the mix, but these small nuances are really going to kind of fill out the track and make it sound like it's a proper track. Okay, we're almost there. Next thing I want to do is duck that sub bass. Let's call this sub. Every time the kick plays. Because that kick, we need to process those, don't we? Oh, let's do that then. But first I'm going to put this little sidechain compressor ducking the sub bass because we don't want the kick fighting with our sub. So now we've got this effect. And that's going to allow us to push the mix louder at the end, which is going to be important. And we could also add that to our bass melody here if we wanted as well, like this. Ooh. Oh, yes. Getting into that. Right. Okay. I'm going to add an OTT to this as well. It's going to go crazy after that with that big EQ. So I'm going to be really, really gentle about this. Cool. That's sounding good to me. Next thing we're going to do is get that kick layered properly. So at the moment, we've got them together and they're kind of fighting a little bit in terms of frequencies. But really what we want is the bass from the first kick, which is wheel kick 3, obviously. This one, it's got a nice solid low end, and then just the top from the second one, like this. So I'm just going to take out the low frequencies of the second one because we just don't need them. Just some of the frequencies. It's going to tighten it up a little bit. So from there, it's a little bit tighter. And then the next thing I want to do is process these two together as one. I'm going to add a little saturation to them. And usually I wouldn't really do this with the kick drum. I like my kick drums to be nice and clean, but it doesn't matter if this one's a bit dirtier. So now we're getting quite a nice fat sound, but it's a bit too loud now. So last thing I'm going to do, again, not something I would usually recommend for most genres, but because we want a big sound, I'm going to do it here and just limit it. But then I'm going to have to take the volume down after the limiting to make sure we're still hitting the requisite level, which would be the -12. And let's see if I can tighten up this kick a little bit, maybe just make it a bit shorter, because there's reverb in there I can hear. So it's more like that. And that's given us a nice fat kick, and we're still hitting our -12 sweet spot. Last thing I'm going to do to those drums before we process them together, which we're going to get to in a minute, is just add a little ride cymbal to give it a bit more of a tss type sound at the top. I want this to be quite noisy sounding drums, you know, quite aggressive. And this is a case of program it in and then switch the sound as you're listening through, because that allows you to really hear it, you know, in the situation it's going to end up being in. So I'm going to make this have 0 release, so we can have each note be quite nice and tight. And we can make the third one louder. Whoops, third one. Maybe a bit longer. So I'm thinking of someone playing the drums, and there's going to be variations in how they play it. And I don't want the low frequencies in there, don't need them. It's just going to be muddying up our mix. So instead of this, we got this. A simple thing, really small, but that's what we're going to go with. Okay, boom, on to the next thing. Processing those drums. So usually I like to have the kick and the bass go together. But in this instance, I want it to really sound like glued together. So I'm going to get the drums and put those all together in one bus, like so. And then there's a couple of things I want to add to this. We don't want to kill the dynamics. So what I'm going to do is slightly kill the dynamics. I'm going to use this drum bus plugin from Ableton. And just, it's going to add some real crunch. We need to take down the volume if we're adding all that volume, because if it just sounds louder, our ears will trick us into thinking it sounds better. So we have to volume match the output from how it sounds when this is bypassed. So you can hear it's just kind of So we're adding distortion. And the last thing I want to do on this, I'll stop shouting now, my ears are a bit ringing. I want to add a little bit of glue compression to get everything tied together. No more than 2 dB, otherwise it'll crush the transients too much. So at the moment, our peak level is hitting minus 6.4. And now let's get our peak hitting the same level with our drums. We have 6.4, but listen how much louder it sounds, because we've increased the average volume from that to that, and yet it's no louder on the peak level. That's how you get fat sounding beats that sound really loud. When you try and do your mastering and it's like, it doesn't sound as loud as my reference track, it's because you need to be increasing the average volume throughout the chain, basically, in a nutshell. And we could do that with, you know, all of these as well. I want this to be louder, this one. Let's try some different distortion. Nah, that's good. Nice. Cool. Okay, next thing we want to do before we get onto the arrangement is find some gnarly vocals. Now, if you're anything like Stormzy, you're going to be a bit angry sounding, but aggressive angry sounding vocals is what you need for an aggressive angry sounding track, because you don't want someone going, "Oh, I love you," and then having beats that sound like they're basically a shotgun unloading in your face. You need lyrics that are going to do, sorry for that graphic image, but you know, this is a graphical lesson that I'm giving you today. So I'm going to open up Splice. I'm going to go, I don't know, like rap, UK. We don't want Americans. No, we want a bloke and we want an English bloke. Let's go UK drill or UK rap.
You don't want this. From, then it changed, stay constant.
Yeah, like singing about how you're going to kill everyone and like whatever. Right, something that sounds a bit aggressive, and then we can listen to it.
You don't want this. From, then it changed, stay constant. Me not a monster, bonkers, mobster, stompers, conscious conkers. Man, it's hard like that. Big bouncer man, he got barred like that.
Yeah, no, I like that. No, that's exactly the vibe I'm kind of going for, really. So I'm going to bring that in. It's 140 BPM. So we're going to have to make sure that is warped correctly. Yes, it is. I'm going to change it to Complex Pro because Complex Pro is the one that is going to make it sound least weird when we've increased the tempo, and we've increased it to 176. So now we've got this. Except I'm going to change the timing because I want that to drop on the...
You don't want this. From, then it changed, stay constant. Me not a monsters, bonkers, mobster, stompers, conscious conkers. Man, it's hard like that. Big bouncer man, he got barred like that. If I give a girl leaders, you call right back. 2 phones, don't call my gap with a raw pipe.
Okay, I'm almost bass facing. Almost. There's a couple of things we have to do first. First, colour it purple, natural colour of the human throat. Although this is a sickly purple. So I'd go and see a doctor if I were you, mate. And then we are going to look for a brass sound. This is going to give you that wow, 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 you know, like gnarliness that you want. I'm just going to go brass. Oh, that would do the trick. I'll have you, son. It's E. So we could actually look for the one that's in the right note, but I'm going to show you another trick, which is how to change the key of a sample if you like the sample but it's in the wrong key. So this is on an E, and if we look at a keyboard, E is 1, 2, 3 semitones below the G, and the G is the root note of this track. So that tells me if we can take this up 3 semitones, it's going to work with the rest of the track. So I'm going to put it up 3 semitones, and then we got this effect.
You don't want this.
I'll make it a bit shorter though. Yes, that's exactly what the doctor ordered. So now I want to keep it short so it's not messing with everything else. We can keep that mix loud. And we go, let's arrange this a bit as well. So we can start off like this. The lyrics are just going to repeat, I'm afraid, because I don't have the whole stem, but that's fine. I'm going to do something with these drums, which is basically delete them. I'm going to delete the drums. Okay, so we can start the track like this.
You don't want this.
Okay, the pitch bend hasn't kind of... That's the annoying thing. One of the things about Ableton I don't like, you have to kind of manually reset that pitch bend.
You don't want this. From where I'm from, let it change, stay constant. Me and all the monsters, bonkers, mobster, stompers, conscious conkers. Man, it's hard like that. Big bouncer man, he got barred like that. If I give a girl lead, she call right back. 2 phones, don't call my gaff with a war pipe. You don't want this. From where I'm from.
Okay, right. Let's build this out. We can actually use this in a sampler as well. I'm just going crazy now, but I'm in the flow because I want to actually bass face myself. I'm going to throw this brass, not the Cockney rhyming slang version of the term brass, by the way. Keep it clean, guys. And I need this to be tuned correctly as well. So I'm going to put it to one voice. I'm going to extend it a bit. And then I'm going to go to transpose. 3 semitones up will be, I need this to be hitting a C. So if our C is doing this, I need the brass to be going do-do-do. There we go, because C is 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones below E, and E is what this sample was sampled on. If you wanted to do the backbone riff, it would be that. So.
Man, it's hard like that. Big bouncer man, he got barred like that. If I give a girl lead, she call right back. 2 phones, don't call my gaff with a war pipe. You don't want this. From where I'm from, let it change, stay constant. Me and all the monsters, bonkers, mobster, stompers, conscious conkers. Man, it's hard like that. Big bouncer man, he got barred like that. If I give a girl lead, she call right back. 2 phones, don't call my gaff with a war pipe.
All right. We need some different lyrics at some point. But anyway, build, lasers, lasers, lasers. Getting excited. You don't have no magic list. And then you can have a little break. And then drop. And then we're going to start with not the 16ths, so we can build into that. So then we could start with a false drop like this.
You don't want this. From where I'm from, let it change, stay constant. Me and all the monsters, bonkers, mobster, stompers, conscious conkers. Man, it's hard like that.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Got barred like that. If I give a girl lead, she call right back. 2 phones, don't call my gaff.
More drums.
You don't want this. From where I'm from, let it change, stay constant. Me and all the monsters, bonkers, mobster, stompers, conscious conkers. Man, it's hard like that. Big bouncer man, he got barred like that. If I give a girl lead, she call right back. 2 phones, don't call my gaff with a war pipe.
Okay, so what are the 5 secrets from this gnarly style of drum and bass? And you can hear the finished version in a few seconds, and you can download the finished version as well. I'm just going to do a bit more work on it. But the first is the drum selection. You can program in some cool beats, but if they're not the right drum sounds, you're not going to get the impact that you want. You want things tight, you want them cut off, you want to use clipping, you don't want these big boomy snares and things like that. For this style of music, kind of needs to be nice and tight. Number 2, Phrygian mode. Use a minor key or a Phrygian mode if you want that kind of slightly
evil sounding.
And then your riffs, your bass line, everything's going to use that same mode as well. Boom. Number 3, very important, modulated basses. None of your normal basses. You need to get some modulation in there, and you need it stat. And the more modulated basses that you have, the better. But they have to interplay with each other. So we can see here, they're not playing at the same time as each other. They're kind of interplaying. There's this call and response relationship. If you have them all playing together, it's just going to get really messy. Number 4, we get onto the processing. We looked at it with the drums, which is the importance of clipping, of distortion, of saturation before you even get to the master channel, because that's what's going to give you a cumulatively louder mix and lots of aggression, but use it sparingly and use it gently and be careful. And number 5 is an aggressive sounding man doing a rap. There you have it. So, all that said and done, let's have a listen to the final result. Just at the drop, I think.
You don't want this. From where I'm from, let it change, stay constant. Me and all the monsters,
Yes, mate.
monsters, stompers, conscious conkers. Man, it's hard like that. Big bouncer, man, he got balls like that. If I give a girl D, then she call right back. 2 phones, don't call my gaff with a war pipe. Big dreams, a whip cleaner, shit mean green, sit lean, and the ops don't know. We on my team with a big team, and a mean man, never go cool. See, man, I've been a trap,
Yes,
but I
mate.
know for a gap, hope, never, never so cold. Come, done up in the back, get a back. You don't want this.
There you have it. And that's how you make gnarly drum and bass like that. But if you want to know how I made this and referenced Jason Status's music, then you can check out the video that I'm popping up there, which is going to show you step by step how we teach people in the Accelerator program, which is why they get signed to some of the biggest labels in the world, because this technique in this video actually works for any genre of music. So if you enjoyed this, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you over at that next video.